attended New Hampshire Institute of Art, and I majored in ceramics, and I actually attended that school for 5 years and got a bachelor's degree in fine arts. I am currently not pursuing a career in the subject that I studied at New Hampshire Institute of Art. But I really would have liked to pursue something in my field. Art is a very difficult subject to find open jobs in, but I found myself scrambling to find a job that I could have to pay those debts right after I had graduated. Now it's definitely a struggle trying to make those payments and have enough for other bills at the end of the month. I definitely appreciate having a degree, but I don't think the price tag that I got on that piece of paper is worth what it is.
I graduated with a Bachelor of Science in Liberal Studies, concentrations in video production and media studies. I think jobs rely too much on college education as a prerequisite. I am making money from a part-time job doing after-school work with kids, which I love, but you know, it's frustrating after a while when you make enough to save for your student loan bill, plus a little extra savings, and to pay for gas, and that's it. And I live at home with my parents, and there's a stigma associated with that I grapple with occasionally. It was a long journey, and then to end that journey in school believing that I had not accomplished what I needed to like be the professional and live the life that I wanted to was like heartbreaking.
I absolutely believe these debts are holding people in their parents' homes for long extended periods of time, and I am an attest to that. I am currently in my parents' home, and I cannot afford to have rent on my own. It's just the state of what our generation goes through, and I think, you know, almost every single person I know is in that exact same situation compared to, you know, past generations have just been able to immediately get a job in their field and be able to purchase a house and, you know, leave their parents' nest, so to speak, but I can't see myself doing that and being able to live comfortably without an insurmountable amount of stress trying to pay my way.
The whole point of a college degree is to move up in the economic ladder. And when it is so expensive that you're in debt that you can't pay and wages are not keeping up with inflation, the cost of school goes up, the benefit you get from getting a degree goes down. My student loans are like a third of my paycheck a third of my wage every month, which is huge for me.
My total debt at the end of 5 years at New Hampshire Institute of Art was about $180,000. Currently, I have about $35,000 that I'm paying. That's not including interest that I've already paid. I was lucky enough to, you know, be able to get a lot of that debt paid off. Wasn't a very happy way that it got paid off. It was a inheritance from my late father, but that enabled me to at least alleviate some debt that would have accumulated about $100,000 in interest alone that I would have had to pay off. I would never have paid that off through the course of my life. Currently, right now, my student loan provider estimates that I will pay off my loan with the current payment cycle when I'm about 50.
First time I went to school was in 2013 for audio engineering at Northern Essex Community College in Haverhill, Massachusetts. When I decided I didn't want to do that, I had like an epiphany about how I would like to maybe teach history to high school kids. So I was studying that for a couple of years, and I dropped out again because I couldn't get the financial aid that I needed. The financial aid department at the school, the second school I went to, was kind of a nightmare. It took months for me to even get the phone calls back, And by the time I was approved for it, it was like 3 days before classes were supposed to start, and I didn't have enough time to prepare, really. It was very unhelpful. I feel like college in the United States of America is more of a financial trap than it is a path to a better way. It's like a credit card company, like, oh, I'm borrowing this money so I can better my life, or I can get this. Like with a credit card, it's like, oh, I need this thing, but I don't have the money for it. I'm going to put it on this card and slowly pay it off. It's the same thing with school, where you're like, oh, I need this education so I can better myself, but you're just going to be, giving money to these banks and these schools with interest rates that, grow every couple of years, and, you're actually paying more money than you would have planned to in the first place, and I don't think that's really fair. I think it's, I think the fine lines of these contracts and these loans need to be more, specific and more solidified to the people signing them. And I think people need to pay more attention to those types of things. Should anybody be put in debt for trying to help themselves? I think there's a growing inequality that people don't understand, and people don't, begin to comprehend that, these things are going to continue to grow in price and, inflate themselves. And eventually it'll be a situation where it's like, I don't know if you're going to break even if you go to college. I don't know if you're ever going to, get that money back, or grow to the point where, all of my debts have been paid all the way, and, I'm in a situation where I'm not financially, not good. I think that parents will keep pushing kids to go to school no matter how expensive it is, because they don't see any other option for their children, or, for the future of this country.
I attended American International College in Springfield, Mass. For 1 full year, so 2 semesters. I was studying English with a with a concentration in secondary education, because I wanted to be a high school English teacher. That was my end game. What really made me want to stop going was that I had a pretty substantial scholarship there that was unfortunately taken away because of budget cuts in the school, is what we were told. I guess the school just couldn't afford to give us the money that they were giving us every year, which is the reason I was able to afford to go there, so I wasn't unfortunately able to keep going. I kept in contact with some students that stayed at that school, that, not necessarily kids that had the same scholarship as me, but the kids that went on to stay at AIC, and they said that our freshman class, the class that I was a part of freshman year, was half the size it was the year before, because kids were leaving because of financial issues and stuff like that. Not even just the kids that had the same scholarship as me, but other financial issues and stuff like that would come up. I definitely am still paying money that I owe AIC to this day, and I went there in 2016, so that was 3 years ago now, and I still owe them a little bit over $1,000 from what I've been paying. It's, if you don't finish the school, or even if you do finish, it's still pretty hard to find jobs in the specific field that you were studying. There's a whole other gauntlet of obstacles that you have to run through after you get your degree, if you even can make it that far in the first place. I think that since I was in middle school, since they first start gearing you up to go to college, the whole focus is you're going to college so you can eventually make a lot of money, and the whole race to get to college and to graduate is all a money making thing. And then when you're actually get to college and you get into it, you realize that the schools aren't really after making you this golden good Samaritan citizen. They're just trying to get you to pay as much money for as many different things that they can possibly get you to pay for before you graduate. And a lot of the times, not even just at the school that I went to, but I obviously would go to other schools, friends that would go to attend different universities and stuff, and it seemed to be a very reoccurring theme, where it was more if you park in the wrong spot in the parking lot, it's a $50 ticket, and a bunch of just other things like that, where it didn't seem like the schools were necessarily out to help the students in every situation. And yeah, it definitely seems they want a lot of money for a lot of different things, unfortunately. I remember crying after I was told that I didn't have my scholarship anymore, and being worried that I was gonna end up on the streets homeless, because that's the image that they give us when you're a kid, is if you don't go to college, you graduate, live in a box or something. It seems as time goes on, the less value degrees have, and the more school you have to attend, and the more money that you have to spend into this giant educational system.
I was at Mass Bay for 2 weeks. I wanted to major to be a veterinary technician. I dropped out when the first 2 weeks of the first semester after I graduated high school, and I dropped out because I felt like it was a waste of time and the teachers really didn't care. I would sit in class and raise my hand and no one would pay attention to me. I felt like I was just a part of some big money scheme and they just wanted me to be in there to get my paycheck, and that no one was actually helping me achieve my goals, and I just didn't want to waste any more money on that. When I wanted to apply for financial aid, my stepfather made too much money and I couldn't do it even though I had no relation to him whatsoever. So I wasn't allowed to get any financial aid even though my family situation was completely different than his. So it's so understood that or embedded into our brains that if we don't go to college and we don't pick a major that's, makes you more money, then you're not going to make a lot of money. You're going to be struggling your whole life. You're going to be doing all these things that, aren't looked at in a brighter light as opposed to going to a 4-year college because, 4 or 5 years later, here you are sitting with a degree with no jobs available for you, sitting in thousands and thousands of dollars worth of debt, and you had really no grasp on exactly how it was going to be, which I think is unfair. They should definitely talk about that more. No one at 18, 17 years old is thinking about how they're going to pay off their student debts, because I do know a lot of people who get out of school and can't find a job in their own major. So at that point, they're basically taking anything that they can get.
So my freshman year of college, I went to Plymouth State in New Hampshire, and I wasn't the biggest fan of the school, so what ended up happening was I transferred my sophomore year to UMass Lowell. But before that, I was looking at other options as well, like MCLA in North Adams. It's a school near Springfield. And I also applied to schools like BU, which were all in-state. And I got accepted into all schools, but I looked into UMass Lowell the most because, one, it helped me and my mom to afford it, and it was a big school, which I'm a big fan of, so I almost didn't go to college at all. So, and it was definitely because of finances. I remember my senior year, it was something that I really was considering. I really wanted to go to college because I genuinely like school. So college was definitely on my list. I probably applied to like 14 schools and I got accepted to 10, maybe 12 out of the 14. So I had options, but I had no money. And money was never something that I considered. It was always emphasized, oh, you should apply to college, but they never told us what happens after, like once we're accepted, which is probably the most important part, and it's how are you going to afford the school. And yeah, I got to the point where I almost didn't consider any schools because it was just too much for my mom, until I spoke with my guidance counselor, and he pretty much laid it out for me, especially with Plymouth State. So the first time that I went to Plymouth State was for the orientation. That was my first college visit, the first time ever seeing that university. And I was already going into it, so you could kind of see how that school caught me off guard, and I didn't know what I was expecting. But yeah, finances definitely played a big role. I felt like I had settled, or I needed to settle for something. Mm-hmm. Something was better than nothing. After I graduate, I do want to continue school, possibly grad school. I've been also looking into, I recently found out that there is really not an order for getting your master's, PhD, or your doctorate. So that's something I'm also looking into, especially with education, because I want to go into that field and educating middle schoolers from high schoolers is something, from that range is something that I'm really interested in. I feel like going into something that I love, that pays well, would be ideal. But I also know that it's not the case for a lot of people. Like, I've heard a lot of stories of people who have graduated and it's like so tough and they get so anxious to having to like pay their debts that they just go into jobs that make good money, but they doesn't fulfill them. So I feel like at this point, or this day and age that we're in right now, I feel like there's so many opportunities to take advantage of. So I feel like the more that I search for something that I not only love, but that would make really good money, I feel like it's doable. Yeah, in terms of just like being open to new opportunities, I feel like I would be able to find something that fulfills both parts of that. I don't think they would change at all. The only thing that would change is the idea of me trying to make an impact on on children's lives in general, but I would probably do it from a more broader perspective, maybe even like travel from state to state or like out of the country whenever I get the chance to be able to do that in different places. I do worry. So to be completely honest with you, finances and debt and all of that stressful stuff didn't come into play up until I became a junior in college. And it's because I'm almost at at the finish line. So it's starting to hit me the more that I progress, that I get to that graduation state. And yeah, it's definitely nerve-wracking and stressful just to even think about it, because it hasn't even happened yet, but it's something I worry about, because it's like, oh, I really hope I get the job that I applied to. Like, what am I gonna get it? Will I get it? What is it gonna be in? So in terms of thinking about how I'm going to pay it off, it is a big stress on my shoulders. I do think that college is ridiculously expensive. But as a woman of color, I feel like having that title gives me the opportunity to navigate through society in general. Having that title definitely opens a lot of doors up will open up a lot of doors for me, especially because I graduated from college. I have a bachelor's degree. So that's like one up for me within the Hispanic community. And I definitely think, don't get me wrong, I think that you can definitely be successful without a college degree, but for me personally, I feel like it would benefit me in the long run, just because it not only would it be a safety net, but it's just having that title would be good for me in the future. Mm-hmm. Oh, 100%. I'm not a big political person, and I didn't become a big political person until last year, or maybe the moment that Donald Trump got elected, because I was like, wait, that really just happened? So it was just one of those eye-opening moments for me, and I feel like it's definitely important, and it's gonna impact the decision I make for my for the elections, because I'm thinking of, at this point, I'm thinking about my little cousins, my kids' kids, and it's like we need a president that's for the people, and who's gonna look out for us, and who's gonna support the possibility of having free education, because it's something universal, and it's something that I feel like everybody needs without having that barrier of trying to afford it.
I mean, I guess it really depends on who you're talking about. If you're talking about Bernie, absolutely. Bernie's going to be on that, he wants us to be able to afford college as everybody else should. I mean, look at all these other countries. It's super affordable. So I definitely think that if it is talked about by the right person who has the right morals, then I will vote for them. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Even though I personally am not like in the market for that in particular, I think that's like a wicked important thing that what is like essential to like a healthy like working class of human beings, just because it's like super out of hand like how much school costs and how like inaccessible it is for like a lot of people. And I think affordable and easier accessible education is definitely a very important thing that should be anybody's like goal to achieve in any campaign at all.
I would vote for any candidate that didn't have special interests and actually cared about the American people. In the upcoming election, if there was a candidate that supported mental enrichment and actually people furthering their selves and their educations, I would support that person.
I would absolutely support a candidate that supported those ideas. I have in the past, specifically Bernie Sanders, when he was running in the 2016 election in the primaries in New Hampshire. He had toured at the Palace Theatre in Manchester where I was attending school, and he actually picked me out of the crowd to talk about my student debt to the people in the crowd. There were multiple other people there, people with master's degrees that they were still in process of getting that were currently in the $200,000 range of debt, which was really shocking. But that segued into his argument of, providing at least state-level school at a free, if not discounted price is absolutely reasonable. I think it's doable, and I think it would benefit the economy as a whole because people would be more educated and open up more jobs, and you'd be able to buy houses and cars and be a productive member of our economy and capitalism. But at the current climate, I couldn't imagine myself buying a new car and taking on payments right now. I couldn't imagine having a mortgage payment or anything like that, let alone just the finite bills with health insurance costs and car insurance and such. It's very difficult.
That is definitely part of the equation when I'm considering who to vote in the primary and the general election and in the next midterms and locally. It's a big question. I have other issues that I care about, but education is definitely one of them because I, have strong feelings about my experience and, like my friends and people I care about. And the next set of people who are going to be doing that, and it shouldn't be like this for them. So yeah, I absolutely care about what politicians are gonna do when they get elected, and I'm paying attention. So watch out.